Hi friends, it is Tuesday, April 28th, and we are going to get started on our reading for today. Inside of your reading packet, I would like you to turn to page 44. Today we're going to get started on page 44. Today's story is titled The Snowstorm. This is a realistic fiction story. Fiction means fake, so this story did not actually happen. But because it's a realistic fiction story, a lot of the things that you hear in this story are going to seem real, like they could actually happen. This is a realistic fiction story. As we read this story, I want you to think about the challenges that this family faces. Remember, we know that a challenge is a problem that we need to fix. There are two challenges that we are going to read about in the story. So I need your help in taking your pencil, so have those pencils ready, and underlining the two challenges that you see happening in the snowstorm. All right, let's get our pencils ready. Remember, we're finding the two challenges, two things that need to be fixed, two problems. The wind blew hard, shaking the barn. Outside, the falling snow whipped this way and that. Inside, Greta and her mother counted the sheep they had just brought down from the mountain. One of the sheep was missing, but which one? They saw that Lizzie, one of the new lambs, had been left behind. Okay, right then and there, I see a problem. It's in the very end of our paragraph. They saw that Lizzie, one of the new lambs, had been left behind because it says just a couple sentences before that Greta and her mother had counted the sheep that they brought down from the mountain because we know that the wind is blowing hard and it's shaking the barn. There's falling snow that's whipping this way and that way. So there must be a pretty bad snowstorm that's happening. So they bring all the sheep inside and they just discovered that Lizzie had been left behind. Uh-oh. Greta and her mother started back up the mountain to look for her, but there wasn't much time. Already they could hardly see a thing in the heavy blowing snow. "Lizzie! Lizzie!" they called out. At last they heard her crying back, "Bah!" They had found Lizzie, but now they were lost. How would they find their way home? Their whole world had gone white. This sentence right here, their whole world had gone white, doesn't actually mean that the world turned white, but this is one of those sentences that we have to look a little bit deeper. We know that the snow is falling everywhere, so I'm assuming when it says that their whole world had gone white, that there's so much snow that they can't see anywhere around them, and we know that they are lost. Uh-oh. We know that they are lost, and that's one of the challenges. We also know that they can't see a thing because the heavy snow is blowing this way and that way. So they finally found Lizzie, but now they're lost. Then Greta saw a stream nearby. A stream is like a small river. The blinding snow was still melting in it. She and her mother could follow the stream's twisting dark line down the mountain. It would lead them back to their gate near their barn. Greta held the little lamb tight. Soon, everyone would be safe at home. Just to recap, we've got a couple problems or challenges in this story. We know that the first challenge is that the snowstorm caused them to bring the sheep inside. But they left one of their new lambs, Lizzie, behind, so they had to go look for her. But the second challenge was that they couldn't hardly see a thing because the snow was blowing so much. And eventually, even after they found Lizzie the lamb, they became lost. Now, Greta solved that problem by thinking smart, and we'll talk about how she solved that problem in just a moment. We're going to turn to the next page, which is page 45. On page 45, it asks, why is finding the lost lamb a challenge for Greta and her mother? So why is it so hard? Why is it a problem for Greta and her mother to find the lost lamb? A, they're not really sure the lamb is still missing. Well, if I go back into the story, it says that they were sure that Lizzie, one of the new lambs, had been left behind. So I know it's not going to be A. B, they know they will be in great danger from the storm. Is that why it's such a challenge? Maybe. Let me see if there's any better choices. Why was finding the lost lamb a challenge for Greta and her mother? C. They have already climbed the mountain once and are worn out. I don't remember the text saying anything about them being worn out. D, they are afraid to leave the sheep alone in the barn. I also don't remember reading anything about them being afraid to leave the sheep alone. So I'm going to go back to B. That seemed like it was the best answer. Let me reread that. Why is finding the lost lamb a challenge or a problem for Greta and her mother? Because they know they will be in great danger from the storm. That seems like the best answer to me because it talks about how they could hardly see in the heavy blowing snow, that the snow was whipping this way and that way. It was blowing so hard that it was shaking the barn. So I think that they're probably afraid that they're going to be in great danger from the storm. So that's why it was so hard for them to go out and find Lizzie. Question number 2. Which best tells about the challenge that Greta and her mother must face after they find Lizzie? Let me go back to the text. Okay. At last they heard her crying, "Bah!" They had found Lizzie, but now they were lost. How would they find their way home? Their whole world had gone white. The question asks about the challenge they face after they find Lizzie. After they found Lizzie, they can't get Lizzie to stop crying, "Bah!" No, Lizzie cries, "Bah!" before they even found her, because it says they heard her crying, "Bah!" They had found Lizzie. That's how they found her. So, no, they didn't say anything about Lizzie not being able to stop crying, "Bah!" B, they are getting very cold from the wind and the snow. I'm not sure about that one. Let me see if there's a better answer. What challenge did they face after they found Lizzie? They have to make sure there aren't any other lost sheep. The text never says anything about them checking for other lost sheep. So I know C cannot be it. I know A cannot be it. Let's check D. They can't see how to get back home in the snowstorm. That one might be right. Let's see. How would they find their way home? Their whole world had gone white, which remember I said that means that there was snow all around them. They probably had a hard time seeing anything else. Then Greta saw a stream nearby. The blinding snow was melting in it. She and her mother could follow the stream's twisting dark line down the mountain, and it would lead them back to the gate near their barn. So, what tells about the challenge they face after they find Lizzie? Well, the challenge that they face is that they can't see. They can't see to get back home in the snowstorm. They're having a really hard time. Remember, it says that their whole world had gone white. Everything turned white. They couldn't see what was what. Everything was just covered with white. You know, B is also a pretty good answer too. It says that they're getting very cold from the wind and the snow. The text doesn't tell us that they're getting very cold from the wind and the snow, but we can make an inference, which is a really smart guess. We know that there's lots of snow. We know that the wind, it says that the wind was whipping this way and that way and blowing so hard that it was shaking the barn. So it would be a smart guess to say that they probably were getting very cold from the wind and the snow. But I think the thing that was most difficult for them wasn't the snow being cold, wasn't the wind being crazy. It was them not being able to find their way back home in the snowstorm after they found Lizzie. So I would say D is the best choice there. I'd like you to talk to somebody next to you about 3. What do Greta and her mom do to respond to the challenge of finding the lost sheep? Okay, so how do they, let's see, let me read that one more time. What do Greta and her mom do to respond to the challenge of finding the lost sheep? So what that is saying is, how do they respond? How do they fix the problem of not being able to find that lost sheep? What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go back into the text, and I'm going to give you a clue. It is in paragraph 2. How do they solve the problem of not being able to find Lizzie? What do they do to solve that problem? I'll read that paragraph one more time for you. It says, Greta and her mother started back up the mountain to look for her, but there wasn't much time. Already they could hardly see a thing in the heavy snow, the heavy blowing snow. "Lizzie, Lizzie," they called out. At last they heard her crying back, "Bah!" They had found Lizzie, but now they were lost. So, question was, what do Greta and her mom do to respond or fix the problem of of the lost sheep. How do they fix the problem of that lost sheep? So tell somebody next to you. The last question is actually a written response, which means they're going to have you use sentences and your words on page 46 to answer this question. Tell what Greta sees in the storm and how it will help her and her mother and Lizzie get home. So the hint is they want you to think about how Greta responds to the problem that they face at the end of the story. We said that the problem that they face at the end of the story is that they can't see to get back in the snowstorm, right? They have Lizzie, okay? They found Lizzie, which is wonderful, but now the whole world had gone white. So they're having trouble seeing in the snowstorm. So it wants you to write, for number 4, tell what Greta sees in the storm that will help her, her mother, and Lizzie get home. Okay, there was something that she saw that she said she was just going to follow, and that would lead them straight to the gates of their house. Okay, so what did Lizzie see in the storm that could help her, her mother? What did Greta see in the storm that could help her, her mother, and Lizzie get home? So when you're finished with that today, you'll be done with reading. But before you put down that pencil, they have a few questions for you to answer about your writing. Such as, let's see, did you use proof from the text in your answer, which means did you go back into the text to find your answer? Did you put your ideas in a good, clear order? Did you use full sentences? Can you check your spelling, your capitals at the beginning of the sentence, and your periods at the end of the sentence? All right, friends, today our objective was to read a realistic fiction text and to talk about the challenges, and there were several in this story. Talk about the challenges that the character faces and how did they react to those challenges? What did they do to fix the problem?